today we have Don Frangipane. He's the facilities director with Neptune Township Schools. And Don, you also are an instructor for, the Certified Educational Facilities Manager courses. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Neptune and some of the things you've been dealing with, just kind of in general.
Sure. Well, we have always been advanced as far as security and security systems and ahead of the curve, or try to stay ahead of the latest and greatest when it comes to technology, integrating with personnel and training. And that's the piece that sometimes is missed. You can have this great technology, CCTV, access, entry vestibules, but what are you going to do when somebody walks up to the door? What do we do when someone pushes the doorbell? Do we have a video camera outside so we can check ID, so we can see the person's face as well as their ID? Can you take a snapshot of that when people are at the front door before they're even allowed through the first perimeter? Once they're in the first perimeter, it's going to be a little, challenging to back them out if you need to. So we took a look at all of our security vestibules district-wide, and we made modifications to them over years ago to allow for flow into the building when it's needed, as well as a diversion of flow, stopping people outside and then once again inside, allowing them to communicate with office personnel. Adequate communication is important, allowing the office personnel to see who's at the door. But more importantly, have proper training in place so that the personnel in the office know when they can politely turn someone around, say, you need an appointment, we'd like you to come back.
Right, and have the right, just have the right dialogue with them and kind of know what are the right things to say, and, even more importantly, sometimes the wrong things to say that might actually exacerbate a situation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and escalate it instead of de-escalate it, right?
And the amazing thing is that no matter how many times we train for things, it doesn't always account for that one situation. But preparation is absolutely key in a lot of this as well. So,
correct.
It's interesting that schools, and kind of just taking a step back here, schools are, we want them to be such open places, right? I mean, we want the community engagement. We want the community to be able to use the space. But we come a long way, from those days of being able to do that, and now we really need to be able to monitor and control as best we can what happens at those front doors. So can you talk a little bit about, because you mentioned the security entrances and things, but sometimes it's also about securing and being able to monitor and know what's happening around the building as well, right?
Sure. Right, and that's a challenge because how far away from the building can you observe video? That's a tremendous amount of video when you have a large building, if we're just talking video. And then we're talking 20, 30, 40 exits that are spaced out around the building. So, we did go with a perimeter video trail that, one camera kind of watching the next all the way around the building. The exterior doors are all secure during the day, naturally. They're secure really 24/7. The only one a visitor comes in and out of is the front door. Then there's some staff entrances throughout the building, and they have card access. They also have door indicators, so when a door is propped, that reports back again to a computer system that can alert someone to that. But besides that, once you get maybe 15 feet from the perimeter, it's a little more challenging, Marcus, in that what could you do that far away unless you start posting someone at driveway entrances, and some schools have done that. I know some schools have done some pop-up barricades and things like that. I don't know if there's anyone on here that wants to share that comment, anything on that comment as far as securing the perimeter, who even gets onto the property. It's probably an area, as you said, Marcus, that in public schools we really need to improve upon, even letting people onto the property.
Yeah, and I imagine there's a lot of it that ties into coordination and cooperation with the municipality too, and the police and fire and everything as well. So, you talk about training a little bit, of your own staff, but there also has to be a point where you're talking and including either security staff or even, local police. And, the whole Alyssa's law was all about making sure that there was some of that communication, the panic buttons and everything like that. What has Neptune done, or what are you seeing out there as far as strategies to address that communication?
Well, we have a working group with our local police. We've been involved with them through the entire planning of our security systems, going back easily 10 years plus.
Mhm.
We talk to them about traffic patterns. CCTV is shared. We talk about different flow around the buildings and what exits and entrances we'll use. That's important to have a relationship and an ongoing communication with local authorities to make sure everybody's on the same page. How will they get in? For example, we had, at our high school, we have an entrance by the gym and performing arts center that would get very congested, and simple little barricade at the foot and take that off limits to parent drop off and pick up. It clears the whole place up. It makes for safer pedestrian traffic, as well as allows close emergency access to police and fire if they need it during arrival and dismissal. So it's kind of a reserved area that they could get close to the building. We took a look at that a few years ago with them, and it worked out really well.
Do you have anybody permanently stationed from the local police department, or is it more just on an as-needed basis?
No, we don't have anyone permanently stationed at any of our buildings other than the SRO at the high school and middle school. We have security personnel and school custodians that are assigned to put up the barricade and remove it at different times of the day, and to monitor traffic flow outside the buildings.
By the way, we have a few guests with us today, so if anybody has a question or wants to throw in their observations or share some of the solutions that you've tried to implement in your district, feel free to weigh in and jump in anytime. We unfortunately, I lost my train of thought now. But, we talked a little bit about security and, again, the vestibules and kind of controlling people that are coming in. But one thing too, with this whole pandemic now, did you find that having that control point, the kind of that protocol in place already, has helped as you try to deal with the pandemic aspect of things too, whether you're doing temperature checks or for any visitors, and kind of screening and controlling how people are coming in there too?
Sure. The district's visitor management policy that's been in place and supposed to be followed regularly lends itself to staff concerns, resolving staff concerns when they say, well, what about people going to walk in? And you say, well, visitor management policy really prohibits you from letting anyone in without an appointment. So it really was an opportunity to even reinforce the importance of visitor management. Because as you said, Marcus, I think a challenge that we face in public schools is we've always been open and inviting. Students were always allowed to come into the schools. The schools were always safe haven. Years ago, schools were open even afterwards for them to stay in and maybe play some basketball, things like that. Right. And it's not the case anymore. So it's been challenging to train some, longtime school staff that you have to say no. You can't let that parent in, even though that parent, if they don't have an appointment. So the COVID situation has actually been an opportunity to reinforce the importance how visitor management and how it can apply to not only school security, but safety as far as the pandemic goes.
So we've talked a bit so far about getting, talking about access on the site, access into the building. But, there's also the unfortunate event that if somebody were to get into the building and, now you're dealing with trying to keep everybody safe in a lockdown situation, districts are going about changing out doors and, the lock sets and screening windows and things like that. What are some of the things that you talk about in your classes or even in district, or some of the challenges that you faced along the way?
Okay, that's, the one thing I love about teaching the facility management classes is I always believe we can learn from each other, because each district has their own challenge. There are some unique characteristics, and as facility management, school security personnel, we overcome that. assistance from architectural firms like yourself. And sharing that out there has been tremendous, even related to COVID and how we've attacked some things. But, you know, we looked for, as far as the lockdown and once an intruder's in the building, we tried to integrate all our systems, our radios, and, you know, and we're still working on some of this stuff, and what we have a plan and we're going forward. All the systems that we purchase, we look for compatibility, right? Can the radio talk to the lockdown system? Can the lockdown system talk to the phone system? And that's where we, you know, we built it incrementally. We started with a lockdown system. We purchased radios that could integrate. So our radios do have the ability to put the building into a lockdown. We're just in the process of implementing that integration. But any phone in our building, any Cisco phone in the building with a 4-digit code can initiate the lockdown. When we took a look at it, we said, what's the most reliable system we had? And Wi-Fi was sketchy in some of the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to have a remote that you would push a button and rely on it. We kind of like the Verizon man. I walked around the building many times pushing a button to see, and there were a lot of misses.
Can you hear me now, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's, you know, but the Cisco phone is in every classroom. And what we thought is somebody really was trying to break in the building to inflict harm, they're likely going to come in maybe a back door somewhere, or the possibilities there. A classroom in the back, a student pop them in, teacher might see that. How quickly can that teacher put the building into lockdown? Do they have to call someone on the radio, hope someone's not on the phone in the main office with a parent? And all of that can be a delay. So as fast as we can possibly get that building locked down, would save the most amount of lives. And that's why we integrated the system. So the Cisco phone ties to the security system that locks the building down. It ties to HVAC. It's a pre-recorded message. It sends text messages as well as emails out to police, rank and file out at headquarters, as well as the 911 dispatch center. It happens immediately and simultaneous.
Nice. Do we have any questions or comments from the audience today? You know, Jim, how are things? How are you dealing with things in Franklin?
They take everybody's license and scan them, but like you say, nobody's really allowed in the building. So, you know, like you say before, it used to come and go. Anybody could come in. You know, it was a free for all for a while. It's all changed.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I'm curious about, you know, just again, kind of this overlap of security and pandemic. You have a lockdown situation. You know, you're supposed to have kids huddled in a corner, or, you know, kind of an area that's out of the line of sight, right? Now you have a bunch of kids and teachers huddled, yet we're trying to be social distance in a pandemic situation. Have there been conversations in any of your districts about, you know, what to do in those situations, or, you know, does one take priority over the other?
That's a good question. No, actually, nobody has.
Hmm.
You know, what do you do when, like you say, when you have to be on top of one another? That's a good question.
So yeah, it is. It's a challenge, and especially a hybrid model. You have two groups, so you're duplicating every drill. The Department of Education has been trying to, you know, give us guidance on the drills. They don't want us to water down a drill, so to speak, and say, let's have a lockdown, but not go in the corner. They're afraid that might create confusion, and it's true. So they are trying to give us some drill guidance that will help us out in those areas. And in event of the real thing, then, you know, there's no choice but to go to that corner. And
I was going to say, I think the safety factor kind of kicks in at that point. Yeah.
Right. And that's why I would like to just mention that, as the Department of Education was saying, the importance of not watering down a drill, because, okay, so now because of COVID, we're not going into that corner for the drill, but next week, do we go into the corner? Yeah, so it's been a hot topic.
Sure.
Email me the number.
Huh?
Well, unless you have anything else to offer, Don, in terms of, you know, kind of advice for districts or, you know, facility staff who are trying to wrestle with this still.
Is there a
You know, we can
Well,
wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, just you know, keep in touch with the Department of Education, Office of School Security. listen to their guidance relating to COVID and drilling. As far as the technology, stay current with the latest and greatest door hardware. Remember, we can't lock students in the rooms. They have to be able to get out with a simple maneuver. The fire officials should be involved in anything that is locking them into the classrooms. But no, I think that's, unless you have any other, topics, Marcus, to put out there.
Not today, no. I think, we're targeting about 10 or 15 minutes for our conversations today, and I think we've hit that. So unless Michael or Jose, who are joining us as well, have any questions or comments, we'll wrap it up and wish everybody a good rest of conference.
All right, thank you.